They told me at one time, they said, if you kill yourself, we'll tell everybody it's an accident, but if you don't, we will kill you and tell everybody you did it yourself. There was a time when they put a rope in my hamper that had a knot on it, and in code that means, like, hang.
These are not your ordinary villains, but the masterminds behind some of the most mysterious and terrifying cults ever known. In this video, we'll take a look at the top 10 most scary cult leaders to ever exist, whose secrets, mind control, and scary acts were under the wraps until now. Number 10. Karen Zerby. Zerby leads a cult known as the Family of Love, which was once called the Children of God. She initially joined Teens for Christ and later became the personal secretary to the group's founder, David Berg. Over time, Berg divorced his wife to marry Karen. They had a son named Ricky, whose upbringing was documented in a disturbing book meant to guide other cult members on child rearing. Initially, Karen played a less active role, but she gradually assumed more authority, creating rules and imposing discipline. When David fell ill in 1988, Karen was groomed to take over leadership. Following David's death, she married another cult leader, all the while maintaining an elusive public image. Some of her followers didn't even know what she looked like. Notably, this cult had some celebrity members, including Jeremy Spencer. His siblings were also raised in the cult, but left as adults and spoke out against it. But Karen Zerby continues to lead the cult, despite legal concerns, remaining hidden and living off her followers' contributions. Number 9. Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo. Constanzo was once a drug dealer and the leader of a horrifying cult, infamously known as the narco-Satanist by the media. Adolfo's followers believed in his malevolent magical powers, but he used them in the most gruesome way. He forced his devotees to kidnap young men on whom Adolfo would perform terrible, sadistic rituals, ultimately taking their lives to supposedly renew his magical abilities. This continued for years until the disappearance of Mark Kilroy, a Texas college student who was enjoying his spring break in Mexico in 1989. Mark's friends quickly noticed his absence and launched a search for him. This initiated a manhunt that crossed borders, and authorities swiftly uncovered the horrifying truth. However, Adolfo had already escaped. He, along with 4 of his followers, fled to Mexico City. But later, the police were called to the apartment where they were staying due to an entirely unrelated dispute. Adolfo opened fire with a machine gun, preferring death to imprisonment. He then handed the weapon to one of his followers, urging him to open fire on himself. By the time the police reached the apartment, Adolfo was already deceased. In the end, 14 cult members were charged for their involvement in the horrific crimes that occurred. Number 8. The Movement for the Restoration of the 10 Commandments of God. This cult was founded in Uganda by ex-priests, ex-nuns, and a former sex worker, initially focused on emphasizing the importance of the 10 Commandments. They predicted the apocalypse on December 31, 1999, and followers sold all their possessions in anticipation. When the world didn't end, they were left frustrated. The leaders revised their predictions, claiming the Virgin Mary would come on March 17, 2000 and lead them to heaven. On March 17th, an explosion and fire tragically claimed hundreds of members' lives. It's uncertain if the leaders lost their lives or fled, with a warrant for their arrest still suspected. Number 7. David Koresh. Also known as Vernon Howell, Koresh rose to notoriety as the leader of the Branch Davidian sect. In the 1930s, the founders Lois and Ben Roden believed in the imminent arrival of a new Messiah. David joined the group, forging a close connection with the founders. After Lois's passing, he assumed leadership, declaring himself the new Messiah. Under his control, disturbing allegations emerged from the cult. And in 1993, authorities issued an arrest warrant for David. He barricaded himself in a compound, and a shootout resulted in casualties, including 6 cult members and 4 ATF agents. Prolonged negotiations followed, but eventually the FBI initiated a forceful operation. The compound was set on fire, resulting in the deaths of 76 Davidians, including David himself. Number 6. Jim Jones. Infamous for his dark legacy, he claimed to be the reincarnation of Jesus, Buddha, and Gandhi. He initially founded the cult as Wings of Deliverance, but later renamed it to the People's Temple Full Gospel Church due to media exposure. Seeking refuge from scrutiny, Jones relocated his followers to Guyana, where they faced allegations of human rights abuses and people being held against their will. As investigations uncovered these horrors, Jones convinced his followers to partake in a mass tragedy, which became known as the Jonestown Massacre. On that fateful day, 918 lives were tragically lost, including Jim's. Number 5. Warren Jeffs. The former leader of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints is now rightfully serving a life plus 20-year sentence. Before his capture, he lived in hiding to evade the authorities. After his father's passing, he took over the leadership of the cult, forbidding others from marrying his father's widows. However, he soon married them himself, except for 2 who fled or refused, leading to severe consequences. Warren controlled marriage assignments and could punish men by reassigning their wives and children to others. In this cult, men needed at least 3 wives to enter heaven, with more wives increasing their chances. In 2005, Texas authorities raided the ranch and took custody of 416 children due to reported atrocities. Warren's arrest in 2006 led to his current imprisonment. Number 4. Shoko Asahara. The leader of the Om Shinrikyo cult claimed to be the reincarnation of the Hindu god Shiva and promised salvation during an upcoming apocalypse. He lured followers by offering to teach them levitation and telepathy, even allowing the most skeptical to drink his bathwater for reasons unknown. Shoko's sinister actions included directing a 1994 attack in Tokyo that claimed 7 lives, and releasing deadly gas in the Tokyo underground in 1995, causing 12 fatalities, 50 injuries, and over 5,000 people with temporary vision problems. Fearing consequences, he went into hiding, but was eventually found near Mount Fuji. Shoko Asahara and 11 disciples were arrested, charged, and sentenced to death in 2004 for their crimes. Number 3. The True Russian Orthodox Church. Also known as Heavenly Jerusalem, this was a cult that branched off from the Russian Orthodox Church, founded by Peter Kuznetsov. In 2007, approximately 30 members of this group retreated into a cave in Russia, following Peter's belief that they must await the world's end in 2008. A distinctive aspect of this case is that Peter did not join them in the cave. Tragically, 2 members died inside the cave, one due to cancer and the other from starvation. Some members, alarmed by the potential toxic fumes from the corpses, decided to leave. The remaining members left the cave only when its roof began to collapse in 2008. In May of that year, authorities removed the bodies of those who had passed, and the cave was subsequently destroyed. Number 2. Bhagwan Shri Rajnish. In the 1970s, an Indian mystic drew thousands of followers with his unconventional, religiousless religion, emphasizing sexual freedom. The Netflix documentary Wild Wild Country showcased his devotees, who wore red clothing and revered their wealthy, often silent leader. In the early 1980s, facing issues with the Indian government, Rajnish's following purchased an Oregon ranch, forming a community that lured people from around the world, prompting tension with locals. The cult's downfall came when Rajnish was deported, and some of his staff were convicted of a food poisoning plot to influence a local election. Number 1. Daniel Perez. Also known as Lou Castro, he led a cult on a 20-acre property north of Wichita. He convinced his followers that he had magical powers and claimed to be a centuries-old angel who needed to commit crazy crimes to stay alive. Perez used his followers' life insurance policies to fund a lavish lifestyle. He even went so far as to take one of his followers' lives to cash in on the insurance. While it's suspected that he may have contributed to the deaths of others whose insurance policies he collected, there was insufficient evidence to support these claims. In 2010, Castro relocated from Kansas to Tennessee and assumed a new identity. However, he was later arrested by the FBI for aggravated identity theft and fraudulent use of a social security card number. While serving time for these crimes, his true identity and past charges were uncovered. In February 2015, he was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 80 years in prison. There you have it. Tell us which one you felt was the most scary in the comments. Also, if you haven't already, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you in the next video.